My name is Deb, and I'm one of the lucky ones. When I was 32, I had inherited a little bit of money and decided I was probably never going to have an engagement ring. So I went into a jewelry store because I saw a ring that I really loved and decided I would buy it for myself. And Joel was the jeweler. He said, "Would you like to go out to dinner?" And I said, I was attracted to Joel immediately because he had classic male pattern baldness. He was 6 foot tall, piercing brown eyes, broad shoulders, very, very athletic. He had such a beautiful head, and he was so confident in his looks. Our favorite song to dance to was "In the Mood." We love to dance. I met Joel in May and we got married in August. He basically told me, "Well, we're going to get married." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." So that's how we got engaged. Joel had just such a zest for life. He loved living more than anyone I've ever met. He would sing to me, and he had a beautiful voice, but he could never remember all the lyrics. And so he'd play them over and over and over again. He would say, "I'm doing the best I can." We had one son, Logan, who is now 26. Our son came to us as a surprise, and of course it was the most wonderful surprise that anybody could ever get. About 15 years ago, a letter arrived in the mail, and it was from a woman explaining to Joel that she was his daughter. She was from a small town in Indiana, and she was the daughter of a woman that my husband dated very briefly in college. She apparently found out she was pregnant at exactly the same time that Joel left to go to Vietnam, and she had the baby by herself. I received this wonderful news that I gained a daughter. Stephanie was very much a part of his life. They became extremely close. She looked like him, she walked like him, she talked like him. So I was given this fabulous gift courtesy of my husband, and for that I will always be extremely grateful. Joel was diagnosed with advanced stage 4 prostate cancer in his 50s. He actually lived with his disease for 12 years. They had given me an 18-month diagnosis second year in, and he fought valiantly. He never, ever once in his 12-year battle complained. He never said, "Why me?" Joel had a passion for automobiles. At one time, he owned probably 10 cars. Cars were always coming and going in our lives, and inevitably they were always breaking down. He never bought new cars, he bought vintage European, and at least on a weekly basis I would get a phone call, "Deb, can you come and get me? I'm on the East Road," or "Deb, can you come and get me? I'm in the city." And it just used to drive me crazy. This is the last of Joel's toy cars. It's a souped-up Miata. His favorite thing in the world was to sidle up to somebody on the highway in a big, expensive sports car and blow their doors off with this little rocket. People often ask those of us who have lost loved ones, do they come back to us in some form or another? And I am absolutely positive that Joel visits me regularly as a hawk. We used to kid around in life, and he would say, "You're coming back as a cat," and I would always say, "You're coming back as a bird of prey." And every time I do something, move something of his, sell something of his, a hawk shows up. A gentleman wanted to buy this car. He loved it. And he looked at the car very carefully and asked if my husband, showed himself to me every now and then. So I told him about the hawk. That day on the way home, he was in his truck apparently going back to his workshop, and my phone rang, and he was absolutely hysterical. And he said, "You can't believe it, I'm on Route 17 heading south, and there's a hawk flying right next to my car." He said, "I looked over at the hawk and our eyes met, and then he flew off." He said, "It is absolutely the eyes of your husband. I know it was him."
When you first met Jack, it actually looked like he got off of a horse, like he was a sheriff in an old Western movie. He kind of had this way of walking, but it was more of a confidence that he had than anything else. He came across a lot taller than actually he was. It was kind of funny because his two assistant principals towered over him, but his demeanor was such that he towered over us. My name is Basil, and I am one of the lucky ones. The first time I met Jack was at a teacher's appreciation social. He talked a little bit about his plans for being the principal of the school. What he was saying was so different from what we've been used to, because the first thing that he said is that he's going to move to town. It's like, I'm going to find a house in Ridgewood, and I want to have a big front porch where people could come and gather and meet me and meet my family. He was never happier than when he was sitting in his office being the principal of this school. He had that bounce when he was sitting where he would take his pencil and tap it on his tongue and would be writing something. And to me, he won the lottery when he decided to go into high school administration. It was on Spirit Days where he would outdress the students and the staff. He came in one day as a Harley Davidson person and had on the leather jacket, and he had hair that came down, and we were going over to the administrative offices for the district. And I said to him, "Are you going to change?" And he says, "Why would I change?" And I said, "Because you're dressed in this outfit." And he said, "But it's Spirit Day. We have to stay in spirit with the students." His demeanor was always where it needed to be to get the job done, even though he may be in a full costume, actually. The takeaway I had from working with Jack and being on his leadership team was to be transparent. We had a number of issues at a dance one night where there was drinking. It's a Friday evening, midnight. Jack was like, "Meet me at my house. We have some work to do. We have to write to the community. We have to write a letter, explain what happened tonight." And I was thinking, can't they wait till tomorrow? And he says, "You don't wait. You get it out there first." What happened? That was his leadership style, was to be as transparent as he could be. He got us as a leadership team, and then the school in general, very involved in the community, because he felt that the school was the center of the community. I mean, we're in this room right here. The Learning Commons of Ridgewood High School was his dream. And so we got the support of our parent community and town organizations to create this space. And then he took some pretty bold steps. Didn't always equate to good relationships with the higher ups, but his school was his priority. On Jack's first official day, we took a tour of the campus. The front of the building from the main road, looked fantastic, but when you drove around back, it really was an eyesore. And so he took pictures from houses of what we look like from their vantage point and used those to request that the Board of Education address that. Now it's beautiful over there. Back to school night, parents in the building, he would apologize for the leaking roofs, why there's buckets in classrooms. He felt we were at the tipping point where the building was in such shape that it needed to have a lot of work done to it. Some people felt, why are we airing this out in the public? And he said, because we need to have people start supporting changing that. Probably the number one way that I stay connected with Jack is through my children. I mean, certainly Jack comes out in my thoughts all the time in terms of education, but he comes up most often when my kids say they miss him. And my kids are still pretty young. My oldest son is 13 years old, and Jack has been gone from Ridgewood for 6 years. They still bring him up quite often. My son would come in from kindergarten, and Jack would ask him, is it a thumbs up day or a thumbs down day? And my son still brings that up today. When I heard of his passing, it just brought back the Jack that we knew and worked with, and all those feelings of sadness that somebody like him is gone. Our current principal didn't get the joy to know Jack, but oftentimes says, "I heard that Jack did this or did that. Can you tell me more about that?" So it's kind of neat that the current principal is learning from Jack. That's a real nice tribute to Jack. My biggest takeaway from Jack was passion. Working with young people and helping to raise them. It's not just about the academics. It's not just about getting kids into college. It's about that they, become better people. What Jack did for me is see where my strength was in terms of working with students and the things that I could bring to the table, and then making that work for him as a leader, to me was just incredible. And I couldn't ask for anything more than that.
What made my mom so special to me was that she was literally my best friend. We spoke every single day. She could sing. She thought she could sing, and she thought she could dance. She had a mentality of dance like no one was watching, so she was able to dance in her own way and have fun, especially with her grandkids. She loved to dance with them. Daughters and mothers, they always have their history of battles, but I think a lot of the times when we would clash, she would just kind of sit and settle into herself and smile, and she would say, job well done, because she really appreciated the fact that I wouldn't stand down in a situation and not be heard. When I came back from college, one day I told her, I said, there's a whole world outside, and you're just sitting in here reading books, watching TV. You could do something better. Maybe about a week before I got ready to go back to school, she told me that she needed me to take her to the airport. And she said, well, I met these people in my book club, and one of them invited me to go to a Comic-Con that they're having in Texas. And I was like, are you insane? You're just gonna get up and go somewhere that someone you've never met? And she was like, well, no, it's about 6 of us. And so I said, okay. So I dropped her off at the airport and waited that night, really nervous, and she called me. The lady that invited them to Texas owned a mansion. She had a huge plot of land with horses, and they had the most amazing time. And I couldn't believe that she took it to that level. My mom was a Trekkie. I thought she was gonna take baby steps, and she just flew clear to Texas to meet somebody that happened to be a millionaire. She liked to read a lot. She had thousands and thousands of books. She would connect with some of the authors, and it was funny, there was one author by the name of Frances Ray that continuously saw my mom always giving responses to all of the books that she had came out with, and she actually mailed her a manuscript and had her read it for her. She was so excited. She felt like it was like Secret Service manila envelope that she got from this author who was her favorite, and she loved it. That author ended up passing away in 2013 from breast cancer. And so it was kind of eerie that someone that so far away that she connected with also was going through the same struggle. She was diagnosed in 2012. She had a mole that took a shape, changed, and it actually started to open up, and it was a sore. And unfortunately for my mom, she was very scared, and she didn't tell anybody. She kept it a secret for way too long, to the point where a vessel had ruptured. And when she went to the hospital, they knew that it was breast cancer, and they had the feeling that it was stage 4. And she started going through chemotherapy, and the wound closed back up, and then they went ahead and they had the mastectomy. It was maybe about 6 months, and then the wound opened up again. They pretty much told her at that point that we should start looking into hospice care. And I remember when the doctor left, I think that was the first time that I started to break down. And my mom just looked at me and she said, wipe the tears away and suck it up and keep trucking. Because she was like, you're gonna be seen as the head of this family now. And she was like, and you can't let something like this break you down to the point that you don't wanna finish helping everybody else that's gonna need your support. And I remember thinking to myself, the fact that she could be that strong, even in that situation as she was being told that she didn't have that much time left, was just something that I definitely wanted to take with me. I mean, that to me solidified the strength that that woman had. When my mother was in hospice, I was there just about every night. And the last night, I was talking to her, and breathing was starting to get labored, and we went to sleep, and I woke up that morning and she was still breathing, and I said, oh, okay, she's still here. And then I went back to sleep for maybe a half an hour, and when I looked back up, she was gone. And I felt a huge level of peace I mean, outside of wanting to cry and being upset, I was more settled within myself because I was happy that I was there. I was happy that she wasn't alone and that she knew that I was there with her. And so when I look back at it, there's no regrets that I have. The only thing that has maybe stood out more to me now is just the value of family. I just know how important and valuable it is to be there when it comes to your loved ones and your friends.
My wife's name is Mary. Breezy Point, 1947, my parents bought a bungalow. I probably did meet her that summer. We were both 9 at the time. She was my friend's wacky sister. My name is Bill, and I'm one of the lucky ones. When we started dating, we hit it off right away. Now, it's a funny thing. I look back, when I think about different things that happened, I don't remember a whole scene. It's like I'm just looking at a snapshot. I just remember, some particular thing frozen in time. The twist. She had learned the twist. She had gone down to the Jersey Shore. So she said, "Do you want a twist?" And I said, "Well, I'm not drunk enough." We did the twist for like 30 years. She wanted to be pregnant, and she wasn't getting pregnant. So she's going to the hospital, to find out why she's not becoming pregnant. And they said, "Well, you don't have to worry about it because you are pregnant." And then our first was born the following June. When she was in her teens, she was interested in the roller derby. And the New York Chiefs said Jerry Murray was a star. So my father-in-law called her Murray. And I picked that up from my father-in-law, and I always called her Murray. The only time I called her was when I was annoyed at her. And as soon as I was annoyed, and I said Mary, and she knew right away that I was really ticked off about something. When I load up the dishwasher, I got to cram it to the treetops because Mary would be very annoyed if she saw me do a half a load. One night, I'm coming home from work, and I get off the train at Quentin Road and East 16th Street. And this particular night, they had a bunch of vendors selling flowers. So I said to myself, I'll get Mary some flowers. And I come in the door, and she looks up and says, "Bill, what did you do?" I go, "I didn't do anything. I just thought you would enjoy the flowers." And she went, "What did you do? Tell me what you did." And this went on and on. I said, "I will never, ever buy you flowers again." I was never much of a talker, but my wife could talk. I used to tell her that she would talk to a brick wall for hours on end. So I didn't have to do too much talking at home because, you couldn't get a word in edgewise, With her illness, she lost the ability to talk. Maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks before she passed away. That was hard to take. That was a very difficult time. Almost every day I think about her and how she enjoyed things. All she had talked about for years, she couldn't wait till I retired so we could do things to go take walks together. So I always had this feeling, which I guess in my generation, that was the thing, that the husband was going to pass away before the wife. And so you wanted to prepare, leave something for the wife. At the same time, she was declining in health because the lower left lung was removed, but the cancer had already spread through the lymph glands. So she needed help around the house. So I retired from the city. And about 2 weeks after I retired, she had a seizure. I took her to the hospital. And in 6 months, to live or less, I thought they were nuts. I just, never crossed my mind. My 2 daughters, Dorothy and Elizabeth, were getting her ready for bed, and they said, "You go to bed, we'll take care of her." The next morning, I came down, and she had passed away during the night. So I go upstairs, I'd be laying in bed, and I'm going, where the heck is she? What the heck can she be doing downstairs? I have 7 kids. The one thing I do regret, she loved being a grandmother. So we had 6 at the time she passed away. 1 granddaughter, 5 grandsons. The 4 grandchildren since then have all been girls. Whenever I think about it, I get a kick out of it because it's unfortunate. She would have really loved having 5 granddaughters. I would have liked to have spent more time together. And everything just goes by very, very fast.
His name was Aaron Baker, and he was an artist and a writer and a performer and a gentleman and just an all-around really awesome, amazing guy. I'm Gita, and I'm one of the lucky ones. Sometimes he wore a fedora, but he wasn't like that nerdy guy fedora. Like, he just had this cool vibe. So he really pulled it off in a cool way. And he also had this vintage tie collection. These amazing like 1940s vintage ties he got on eBay. We met at a theater where we both were doing a show. We were doing 2 shows as part of a festival. I guess I made the first move. I sort of knew that he was interested in me, and I needed some work done on my apartment, and he'd offered to help me. And we stayed up all night tiling this floor. And I don't know, like I wasn't really attracted to him at first, and then I don't know, like he was so good at tiling this floor, and it was kind of sexy. He was amazing at everything. I mean, he was like, if you needed a skylight put in, he could put a skylight in. If you needed copy editing done, he would be an amazing copy editor. If you needed a website built, he would build your website. He designed my engagement ring. We picked out the diamond together online. I wanted this square cut diamond, and then he designed the setting, an Art Deco setting around it, and had it in AutoCAD, and then sent it off to a jeweler and had it cast. It was amazing. I was going to visit my dad in Massachusetts, and Aaron had to work. So he was going to meet us the next morning. He was going to take the first train out of New York, and we were supposed to pick him up at the train station. And so I left on Thursday, and I didn't hear from him the rest of the day Thursday, but he worked nights. So a lot of times he would get busy at work and I wouldn't hear from him, so I didn't think anything of it. And then the next morning I didn't hear from him either, so I was texting him, are you on the train? And he was the kind of guy that, if he was in the quiet car and it said turn off your cell phone, he was the kind of person who actually turned off his cell phone in the quiet car. So then I told myself that he must be in the quiet car and that we should just go to the train station and pick him up. We went to the train station and he wasn't there. So they were like, oh, we'll check to see if he's in the bathroom or something, if there's anyone on the train. And they did, and he wasn't there. And that's when I started to get incredibly nervous. So I called my friend Art, who has keys to our place, and I asked him if he could go over there, and he did. And Aaron had died in his sleep on Thursday night or early Friday morning. It's really hard because he died a month before our wedding. So it's not like we got to get married and have children and have this beautiful life together. We were planning this beautiful life together, but we didn't get to have any of it. We didn't get to have a first dance. We didn't get any of it, not even the first thing. I guess we got the proposal, but that was it, And so I often think to myself, like, God, if it had been like the day after our wedding, at least we would have had this beautiful wedding. Or if it had been like a year after our wedding, like maybe I would be pregnant and I would have a kid and have a part of him somewhere. I am remarried, and I have an amazing husband who's wonderful, and watched his dad die in front of him at a restaurant. So he is pretty good with grief and is very wonderful about Aaron and the whole thing. He thinks that God brought us together because we're really great for each other and we're really perfect for each other. And it's interesting because the person I am now, the death of Aaron changed me so much. And, I'm not sure that this version of me and Aaron would be as great a match as, we were before all the bad stuff happened. But Steve is an amazing match for me now. You know, panic attack, anxiety-ridden me. I have both my beautiful rings. I feel like I'm engaged, I'm also married now, so I kind of feel both at the same time. And I guess in some ways I am very lucky to have had that at all. You know, I have friends who have trouble finding a guy who will call them, you know, right? So, you know, the fact that I've had these two amazing, wonderful, kind, supportive men in my life is amazing. I do feel like I've had two soulmates.
We're married 65 years, 4 months, and 8 days.
He thought he could dance.
She used to make a Philadelphia cream cheese cheesecake.
I don't feel very lucky sometimes.
He always sang the same songs, and I can't even remember the name of them now.